It starts at 2:17 a.m. Every night the sky remembers what we owe. The sirens wake like someone twisting the heart out of a metal animal. A 3-note climb that levels into a long, flat breath. Visitors think it's a tornado warning. We let them think that until the first time they're caught on the asphalt at 2:18 with their keys in their hand and the hair on their arms pointing north. The weather here is predictable. The sirens aren't for weather. By day, my town is all flags and feed stores and a mural of a train that never came. By night, it becomes a checklist. I know because I sit in the courthouse basement with the binder on my lap and the switch under my thumb. The job is called Civil Tones Coordinator on paper. People here call it the clock. My father taught me the rhythms when I was 10, 3 slow wails to call you home. The steady tone to make you still. The short burst at 2:29 when it's safe to breathe like a person again. He said the sirens don't scare what's coming. They just teach us how to look uninteresting. The binder is older than me. The first page is thin and oily from fingers. Do not let the second tone catch you holding metal. It says in red. Step off the paved. One bare foot on wood, the other anywhere earth remembers your name. Face a wall with no mirrors. If you must be outside, close your left eye and keep your mouth shut. If a voice conducts roll, fail to exist. People laugh at rules until the rules save them. Then they bring you pies. Tonight the rain gave up early and left the streets shining like fresh cuts. At 2:14 I made my rounds on the radio. Households confirm, I said. The old voices answered like clock hands clicking past each other. Kitchen light on. Basement door latched. Left eye closed. The new deputy keyed up and tried a joke. Should I put my tinfoil hat on? I didn't answer. At 2:16 I wound the timer and pictured Dad's thumb. Smoker's callous white against the black switch. At 2:17 I pressed down and the county woke up exactly like it was supposed to. You can tell who moved here recently by how loud they get. Sirens stretch sound tight across people's nerves. It makes you want to fill the air with your name just to feel real in it. I watched the square on the basement cameras go still. Porch lights steadied to that soft amber we're allowed. The diner sign flickered itself to sleep. Out past the gas station, a semi had parked nose in like a scared horse. A man in a windbreaker stood by the pumps looking confused, as if the town had quietly been replaced while he was digging for his wallet. I could have called him. The payphone still works if you know which wires to kiss. But Rule 7 in the binder is cruel and it keeps us alive. Do not invite a count you can't control. Once you speak to someone in the minute between tones, you become responsible for the number they make. It's math with blood. I told myself he'd figure it out. Step back from the paint. Watch how the locals hold their breath. Follow our mistakes. Then I saw Carla across from the diner, framed in the wash of her porch light, arm deep in the jaws of her dog door. She rents the yellow shotgun with the tin awning. She works nights at the packing plant, misses these drills half the week, thinks the rules are a superstition with pretty stationery. She had left the flap propped open with a brick because her old beagle likes an audience. Now the brick was gone and the beagle was howling under the house and Carla's keys were clattering on concrete in a language the sirens hate. I left the switch and ran for the square stairs 2 at a time. The courthouse keeps night like a coat. You can put it on without thinking. Outside, the air felt thick and practiced, like it had already done this 10,000 times and found the parts that worked. The second tone held that long breath that makes your thoughts line up and wait their turn. I stepped off the last slab onto the grass and kept my keys pressed flat against my thigh so the metal wouldn't have ideas. Carla, I whispered, which is against 3 different rules, but a whisper is a hinge. It opens just enough. Feet on your mat. Left eye. She froze and did both by reflex. The beagle's howl choked down to a wet growl. From under the house came a tapping, not frantic, not slow. Accounting speed. Tally marks learning the cadence of a new surface. From the highway side, fog unrolled itself into 3 long figures holding clipboards that didn't have boards and pens that never touched paper. They didn't look at us. They looked at our numbers. One stopped beside the parked semi and counted all the gallons of gasoline it almost had. Another paused at the edge of the diner and subtracted the daylight from the pie case. The third stood on the center stripe and listened the way a snake listens with its whole body. When it turned its mask toward me, I closed my left eye so fast my eyelids squeaked against my cheek. "I've got you," I said to Carla, too loud. "Don't answer. Don't." The thing on the stripe twitched a finger and the beagle went quiet like a radio whose battery forgot its job. Carla's mouth opened on a round letter. I put my palm against her shoulder without moving my feet. Wood under my heel, dirt under my toe. The rule held. Something small and stupid in me wanted to say my name just to show how names fit in mouths. Instead I said, "Kitchen light," and kept saying it until the syllables were only air. The clipboard nearest us clicked in tiny approval. It likes nouns that aren't people. It drifted past and left a smell like wet envelopes. At 2:19 the semi-driver figured out about asphalt. He climbed onto his step and hugged the mirror like a wife. The man on the stripe turned toward him and the mirror turned with it, which is not how mirrors behave in polite houses. The driver's mouth said a word. I couldn't hear it, but the stripe collector could. The pen flicked without ink and his shadow came apart like dandelion seeds returning to their idea. The siren does not cover screams. Teaches you to make none. The second tone held and held. The binder says it varies, that the window is longer on the new moon and shorter when wheat's in. I kept my hand on Carla's shoulder and spoke appliance names like prayers. Fridge motor. Porch bulb. Switch plate. The tapping under her house moved along the joists following my voice like a blind thing with good manners. Then lost interest and ticked away. Across the square, the deputy stepped out of the substation with his radio high, metal flashing in a way that is fine at noon and not allowed now. He started to say something into the mic. The thing on the stripe turned half its head and all the streetlights bowed. "Hey!" I hissed across my teeth. "Left eye." He laughed like people do when they are drowning an inch from shore. At 2:21 the steady tone sank half a note, 2 beats down like a heart testing itself. That's the part in the binder Dad circled twice. If you're outside, that dip means you're in their book. Not taken, not safe. Noted. Puts a thumbprint on you so it can recognize you next time and do nicer math. The first year you get the print, you dream in numbers. The second year you stop dreaming about yourself at all. "Get inside on the burst," I told Carla, which is a legal instruction, but we were already trespassing. "It's coming." The third figure stopped in front of us and didn't see us. It tilted at the porch light and the bulb flickered once in relief and burned steady again. The mask turned a fraction. The pen hovered. The breath of the siren pressed our ribs from the outside, telling each bone what to do. I kept my left eye closed. "Do not move," I said. And then I moved. I stepped off Carla's mat onto the planter board, toes curled over splintered wood, heels sunk into soil. With my free foot I hooked her keys and slid them into the mulch. The metal vanished under damp earth like a sin with good aim. The figure on the stripe tilted its mask a degree, as if a page had rustled in its ledger. The pen paused over an invisible line. "Porch swing," I said, syllables clipped, choosing a noun big enough to eat a moment. Bug zapper. Mail slot. Window screen. Counting the things that did not have souls is the only way we know to pad a night. The clipboard nearest us trembled in tiny recognition. The pen flexed toward the hardware and away from the warm, dumb heartbeat of a woman trying not to cry. The deputy was still on the slab, radio in his metal fist, right eye wide, left foolishly open. He started to say my name, and I flattened the sound with more objects. Hose bib flag bracket. Shingle. I moved along the wooden edging like a child playing the floor is lava, heel and toe, wood and dirt, never giving the pavement both feet. The diner's porch had a raw plank step. I planted on it and grabbed the broom leaning there. Dry wood, no nail showing. Good. Don't. The deputy tried again, and the pen on the stripe made a small, delighted check. I didn't look at him. I swept the broom out in a cheap batter swing and cracked it against his wrist. The radio jumped, clanged on the sidewalk, and went quiet like a fish finally remembering water. He yelped, then bit it off when the stripe turned. Left eye, I said low without turning my head. Left eye. He squeezed it shut so hard the muscle fluttered. I thumped the radio with the broom until it skittered off the slab and into the flower bed. Dirt ate the metal's shine. The stripe's head cocked the width of a hair. The pen hung above a different line. The siren's steady tone held us like a hand. Somewhere a gate hinge squealed and kept squealing because nobody could be kind enough to touch it. From under Carla's house came a last patient tap and then nothing. An absence that felt like someone setting down a red pen. "I've got you," I told Carla. One hand still on her shoulder, my other clutching the broom like a staff. Saying it again didn't make it truer, but it filled the air with something uninteresting. Out by the pumps, the third figure leaned in to smell the dark inside the semi's tank. The driver made a sound like language and climbed onto the running board. He set both boots on steel and hugged the mirror, glitter and all. The stripe held its breath. The pen lifted, ready. Couldn't help him. The square is wood and grass and concrete arranged like an old hymn. There's only so much of it you can use before you deserve what looks back. I pressed my heel harder into the plank. Under my sneaker, a nail whispered its small, bragging song. I shifted so my weight found the knot of wood instead. At 2:23 a.m. moth the size of a prayer hit the courthouse light and fell into its own shadow. The deputy let a laugh leak like a tire. I wanted to shake him until he learned different air. "Breaker box," I told the night. "Back door hinge. Trash barrel lid." I whispered appliances like rosaries and the pen liked the cadence of control. The beagle under the house made a small, gulping hiccup and then a low hoot, as if taught to be quiet in a hurry. Carla cried one quiet tear that didn't count, because tears don't shine like metal and the pen ignores what won't reflect. "You're okay," I said. "You're okay." It's the lie the siren asks you to learn by heart. The steady note stepped down that half tone again at 2:25, the warning dip you can feel in the insides of your teeth. The binder would call it provisional notation extended. The way a weatherman calls the end of the sky a trough. It means the book's still open. It means you matter more than is healthy. The figure on the stripe finally left the center and drifted a handspan closer to the courthouse door, as if proximity were a handrail. The one by the pumps wrote something near the driver that looked like subtraction. A little glitter shook loose of the mirror and fell like spoiled snow. "Garage door," I said too loud, drowning a name in the shape of a machine. My father's voice moved in my chest the way a hand moves a radio dial. "Don't get fancy. Ride the tone. Wait for the chirp." I had been 8 the first time I heard the chirp in my bones. A sharp, bright stutter after the white breath of the steady note. Dad had been bigger than the switch. He'd made the siren feel like a door you chose to close. He'd told me about the man who tried to force the burst early once, how the town lost a week of birds for it, how the pen learned new ways to count that we never quite got rid of. I didn't run for the courthouse. I couldn't and still call myself the clock. I did the old, simple work. I kept us boring. I kept us here. "Window screen," I said again, softer, and the stripe's pen hesitated, confused by repetition, which is comfort. The deputy pinched his left eye until the white went pink. Carla leaned into my palm and inhaled sawdust like it was medicine. The dog under the house shivered his old tags once. A quiet little weather, and settled. At 2:27 the first figure reached the edge of my hearing by the train mural and stopped, as if the paint had satisfied it. The second figure left the pumps and passed the diner window where pies cooled behind glass. His pen hovered with unhunger. The stripe tilted its mask my way and did not see me. It smelled nouns truer than blood. A bat stitched the air between us. The siren did not care. The siren's job is not to love bats. From the courthouse stairwell, I heard the building breathe the way old men do after a long laugh. One of the basement fluorescents fizzed and went out and the monitor in my head flickered, as if the square had reached up and put its hand over my eyes for a second to see what I'd do. I did nothing spectacular. I counted fence pickets. I named the bolt holding the bench leg. I closed my own left eye just to feel the world tilt and let it. I held a broom between me and somebody else's disaster and pretended it was what fathers are. At 2:29 the chirp came, bright as a child tapping a glass to toast. The steady tone cut and the 3-note climb returned like a name you might someday get to answer. The fog peeled back like tape from a forehead. The clipboards turned their masks a fraction and, for the first time tonight, moved as if the air were heavier for them than for us. Inside, I said very quiet. I moved my hand from Carla's shoulder and did not watch her go. You don't make a ceremony out of the right thing. Her door clicked twice the way it always has because the latch is jealous, and in the space between those clicks I heard the beagle's toenails on old wood. The deputy backed into the substation, bumping the jam with his hip like a man who will never ever forget which eye to close. He kicked the dead radio out of his way like something that had learned to be a snake. On the highway, the driver didn't move because there was nothing of him to move. Where he'd been, a coat whispered on the step a long time and then slid off under its own idea of gravity. The clipboards flickered thin and thinner, like receipts held up to a bulb from behind, and the square got its ordinary wrong back. Neon returned to behaving like glass. The diner sighed in mayonnaise and coffee. The fog dragged itself back toward the river under the bridge like a comb being put away. The chirp died. The night exhaled. A chorus of lids lifted all over town and nobody admitted it. I walked the broom back to the diner and set it where my guilt could find it tomorrow. I carried the penless hush back down the courthouse stairs. The binder was where I'd left it, open to Dad's page with his butter-knife handwriting. In the margin by Rule 1, he'd scratched a sentence all those years ago that the page had learned to hide until I needed it. If you move, that's count enough. Don't make them count more. I initialed the log. 1 unauthorized contact, 1 object intervention, 1 left I saved. Under losses, I wrote none and sat with the lie until it softened. In the corner of the basement, a moth walked circles around the dead fluorescent like it was looking for a door back to the first night. At 3:02, the deputy radioed in, voice small. "Kitchen light on," he said, because sometimes the only way to be alive is to inventory the things that don't mind being named. Carla checked in with a tiny laugh pinned to the end of her breath. "Basement door latched," she said. "I didn't ask about the dog." He thumped his tail against the floor for me anyway. 5 slow beats that didn't require any math. I put my thumb on the switch at 3:05 and felt the cool ghost of my father there like static after a song. The town above me turned over and found its cool side. The binder closed on itself like a patient book. At 2:17 tomorrow, the sirens will ask us again to be less interesting than a ledger. We will try. I will be the clock. And when the pen turns its mask toward me, it will find what it put there at 2:21. A small print that says I moved once and paid in nouns. It will remember my number. I will remember it back.